everybody. We are going to talk all about bands today, so I'll kind of start with the talking and then get into the exercises and the showing. So today actually won't be a full workout, but you're going to get some ideas of things to do, and like I said, why, the reasons why. So bands are amazing. Number one, they're not expensive, they don't take up space, and you can get a lot of resistance, a lot of varied different resistances with 1 or 2 resistance bands. So unlike dumbbells where you might need to have, 3-pounders all the way up to some of us, needing 20s and beyond, with bands you wouldn't necessarily have to have as many bands taking up as much space or costing as much money to get the same amount of resistance. So I just want to talk about a couple things that I hope get your brain going and helping you think about why bands might be better for you. So I say it a lot, but I think especially if we have low back things going on, bands can be really great because we can get a lot of resistance without loading, without having things pulling us forward. So I'm going to give you an example. Today in my class, we did dumbbell rows. So we were hinged forward and we had a dumbbell that we were pulling up. We had our hands supported on a chair. So I offered, because I know that so many people get into this position where they're hinged forward and either instantly or within a few seconds, we start to feel our low back. So some of that might be not properly activating our glutes and our hamstrings, so we're not using those muscles to get us here. Some of us are really tight, so our body literally can't get into that position without starting to use our low back. So using a band in an upright position, which I'm going to show you here, is a way better option because we don't have to be in that forward position. We can get lots of resistance for our back and for our biceps, and it's an easy switch. So not better or worse, just different, and I guess maybe better for you if you're not feeling low back pain. Another example is deadlifts. I really like using the bands for deadlifts because when we use 2 dumbbells, which most of us have at home versus a barbell, those dumbbells tend to creep away from our body. Whereas if we're using a band and we have our band hooked up under our feet, we're going to travel the path where the band's at. We're not going to pull it out away from our body, so we're going to be able to keep that line of resistance really close to our body, allowing us again to use the lower body, the back side of the body, a lot more effectively. And these are just a couple of examples. I could go on and on with reasons and exercises and variations that maybe work better. So I think a lot of us, we don't have places to hook them in our home, or we don't think about places, or maybe our camera is not in a place that our computer and our camera and our laptop are not in a place that work. So I just want to show you a couple of ideas today of how to hook them up, and then we'll go through some different variations with them at different heights and different ways for connecting them. So if you have any questions during it, or any comments or suggestions or tips of your own, please put them in. If I don't see them right now, I think it'll be helpful for people watching this later, because what I hear over and over again is that not everybody can watch when we go live around noon, but we are watching them later. All right, so 2 ways. I'm going to move my camera, so I hope I don't make you dizzy. I'm going to move my camera, and we're going to look at using a door anchor, which is probably the easiest way to do it. All right, so I've got a door anchor here. This is a brand new one that I got from Lifeline directly, and I have a few at the studio. So if some of you are joining us in the studio and you wanted to buy one, I could sell you one for $4. They're $5 on Amazon right now, which is still super cheap, but they work great if you have a door that works. So I'm going to show you how to do this. We're going to take off the tag and take it out. It's got the side here is going to be the side for our band, and this is the side that's going to go in your door. So basically we're going to open the door, slide it in at the height that we want. We're going to make sure that the door is shut. So for this door, it opens out towards me. I'm going to use my deadbolt in both locks just to make sure it's really secure. And then give it a little tug to make sure it's not coming through. It's got that nice soft molded plastic, so it's not going to scratch up your doors if you're worried about that. I honestly am not really worried about that at our house, but I know some of us might be. And then we just take our handle and we take it right through, and we can do our rows. So remember I said that hinge forward position for a lot of us is not going to be comfortable for our low back. So I'm going to show you a row here, and we're going to see how we can get an awesome amount of resistance using our band hooked up at the door. So all you're going to do walk it backwards, plant my feet, so remember soft bend in the knees, and then we're gonna pull elbows to the sides. So back muscles are the second largest muscles in your body next to your lower body, your legs and your butt muscles. So we need a lot of resistance. So if we're using, 5-pound weights here and that feels like a good challenge, great. But for a lot of us, 5 pounds is gonna be too light for our back and our biceps for a compound move. Compound just means that we're working multiple muscle groups at the same time. We need something heavier. So that is a really heavy resistance band. So that brings me to another topic of making sure you have a variety, have a light one and a heavy one, or maybe a couple in between, because again, they don't take up much space and they're really inexpensive. So at waist height, another exercise that we could do is a chest press, which is a variation for the ones with the dumbbells where we're on our back, or a push-up where we're on the floor. So for a lot of us, this doesn't work. So this band is probably a little bit too hard for me, but I can give you the gist of it. So when we do this one, we still get a lot of core. So when we're on our back and we use our dumbbells, we're getting a lot of work for our arms and our shoulders, but not so much for our core. When we use a band, if I step out, this band is pulling me back. So I have to really engage my deep core muscles. So I have one leg forward, and I'm gonna press out in front of me and then slowly bring it back. So if I had side view here, which is really hard for me to set up at home, especially without you seeing my huge mess. If you had side view, you'd see that my body is staying locked into position. So when I press forward, I'm gonna try and keep this all in one straight line. I'm gonna try not to let myself go back and forth. When I'm successful at that, I'm gonna work that deep core. So maybe if you're doing 2 sets, you do one with the right leg forward and one with the left leg forward. But not a big deal, because like I said, it's mostly about the upper body, not so much about the legs. Core and upper body are way more engaged. Diego's coming to say hi to us. All right, so then let's move that door anchor up, and let's talk about exercises that we can do overhead. So when we move the door anchor to the top of the door, we've got options like tricep extensions and overhead triceps. So again, we want to make sure that door is locked. You want to give it a nice tug and make sure it's going to stay put. This might be one where you would want something a little bit lighter for your resistance, but we can do some tricep push downs. We could do straight arm lat pulls, which are really good for our upper back, underarms, and triceps. We can do overhead triceps. Again, a lighter resistance band might be better, but we get lots of options where we're upright, we're not on the floor, and we can transition really quickly, right? You just slide it up and put it back down. So if your door is kind of flimsy, like we have one at the Cross Street studio that there's no way I could hook it up at the top because it's gonna pull right out. It's a very cheaply made door. Or if you've got like bigger gaps and it's gonna slide right through, or if you don't wanna have to do the switching back and forth, I'm gonna show you another option that's really awesome. So we can use hooks. And especially if you have like a designated workout space, we can put a hook into the wall as long as we find a stud. And then we've got the option either with this type where we use the carabiner and we hook the band into the carabiner, or with this one. Sorry, I know it's really rusty, but these are the ones that we use at the outdoor space on Cross Street that I used in my extra bedroom for the whole time in COVID for teaching classes and doing my own workouts. Once they go into the stud, they're super, super strong. So the only thing I would think about here is if you have kids walking by the area, you don't want anybody to like accidentally trip depending on the height and hit themselves on here. So again, if it's like a designated workout space, or if you wanted to put something on top of it like a tennis ball or something to help protect it, if you have kids walking around, might be a good idea. But I'm just gonna show you a real quick rundown of how to do this. It is not complicated, so even if you feel like you're not handy, I think you can do this. So we are going to basically need our style of hook, whatever you're gonna get. These are like $1.79 is what I looked up and I saw. And you would need a stud finder and your drill. So you find your wall space that you wanna use, and you wanna make sure that you find a stud. So when you find the stud, there's many different kinds of stud finders, but this one should beep at you and give you the spot. A stud is gonna run here. We just find that spot. We're gonna drill a hole that's not quite as big, and then you're just gonna use your hands, or maybe you might need to use a wrench to get it in there all the way, and then you've got an awesome anchor point. So I always have one at like about kind of rib height, and one overhead so that I can do those tricep push downs and those overhead triceps. I can do my rows and my chest presses. There's even some things when you're sitting, you can do some things sitting. So I hope that gives you some ideas of how to hook up your bands. Some of you might have some things that are in your house that are nice and sturdy and heavy. So if you are working out near a stairway, like a banister going up, and it's nice and sturdy, you might be able to use that. If you're working out outside, you might find some things that work. But I think all of us have a door, all of us have wall space, and if you've got a house, you've got to have a stud in there somewhere. So finding the stud and then screwing into it and having those ready can be game-changing for your home workouts. And I know that a lot of us have transitioned into working out in the studios and in the gyms, but a lot of us are still doing some workouts at home. And I know many of our clients are doing a little bit of both. Sometimes they're coming to the studio and sometimes working out at home. So you might as well set yourself up to make your transitions quick and make it more enjoyable. If you have any questions, again, let me know. So let's just go through a couple other exercises that we can do before we close off here. All right, so we've got it hooked up at about waist height. I talked about our rows and why this exercise is a really good one especially for those of you who have low back issues. We can also do our single arm rows. So we can have both handles in one hand and we can step one leg back and we can do a row. On these, I like to do a little bit of rotation. So we work on thoracic mobility, so you do a little bit on each side, and we can do our chest presses here, so we can press out, keeping our core nice and strong so that we work that core also. If we move it back up overhead, and I'm going to switch to that lighter resistance band so that I can show my form a little bit easier. Probably would have been easier if I kept that one on and then took it out. You can take it up. So like I said, always make sure you do that little bit of a check to make sure that it's not going to come through. Because a lot of times we put it through further than it needs to go, and we need to pull it so that it hooks in that area. So tricep extensions, again, are awesome for the back side of our arms, but a lot of really good upper body posture work here. The overhead ones, just like those chest presses, we're not only going to get the arms, but we're going to hit the core a little bit. So if you are trying this at home, you're going to feel those abs turn on instantly, especially if you've got a decent amount of resistance for the triceps. With it in either spot, as long as you have a light resistance band, we could also do something like a reverse fly, where we pull it apart and squeeze those upper back muscles. There's probably a whole bunch more that I'm missing, but that gives you some ideas of how to work the major muscle groups. So just a couple other ones with bands where you don't need to have anything hooked up. Bicep curls are a really good one. I'm going to change this down a little bit. So bicep curls, again, if we've got dumbbells, we might have the right amount of resistance, but many of us don't have enough different size weights at home to make this work. So we're maybe having to do, 30 repetitions, which is, in my opinion, not really as good for strength training. 30 some repetitions where we could maybe do something a little bit more challenging and not have to do as many repetitions. And I know most of us are short on time. So we could hook it underneath 1 foot or 2 feet to make it harder, or all the way out to make it even harder. So the more width I get here, the more tension I'm gonna have on the band, and we can do our bicep curls. Again, if we decide to do the deadlifts, we wanna stand on it with both feet. Most of us are gonna choke up on the band because the handles are not gonna give me enough range of motion. And we hinge, stand nice and tall, focusing on locking in the upper body. So I'm still working my upper body, especially if it's a heavier resistance, or if you decide to use dumbbells or kettlebells or a bar, you're working your upper back and your triceps, but we're focusing on standing up nice and tall using the glutes and the hamstrings. So the back side of the body, pressing my feet through the floor to come up nice and tall. There's another one that you can do. So a lot of us have the loop bands, but the loop bands, I feel like they don't fit everybody's body, which is really frustrating that they don't make some different size, lengths, widths of the loop bands. or maybe we just don't have one, or we're traveling and we forget to bring it. You can also use your resistance band to get your hips. So you would step on it, and then you can take your feet side to side. So this one's actually probably a little bit too hard. I want something a little bit lighter, but I'm gonna hold that tension. So I'm trying to keep this pulled with my arms and keep my feet really close to the floor, sliding side to side, so that when I'm pulling that band apart, I'm feeling the sides of my hips. Lots more exercises that we can do with bands, but I hope that that just gives you a few things and maybe some ideas of setting up your space at home, or if you're traveling, grabbing one of those door anchors either from me at the studio or purchasing one on Amazon or through Lifeline. I'll drop the link in the comments here once I end the post. And also I'll drop the link for these resistance bands. So not every color is the same from brand to brand. This is a question I get all the time where people say, what color should I get? Well, what brand are you gonna get? Try them out, but make sure you get something that's like at least a light and a heavy, maybe a light, medium, and heavy. So a lot of them come in kits. Again, there's a couple that I can recommend that I can pop in the comments. I really like these because you can have, you know, for some of us, it's nice to have one set of handles, and then you can actually take this out and replace it with different bands. I think these are really durable and they hold up. Sometimes the softer cloth ones get a little grimy and nasty and crumbly after a bit, whereas these hold up for a really long time. I don't know, I really liked the Lifeline bands the most out of all the ones that I've tried. So set up your home for awesome home workouts with the bands. Set yourself up for bands for when you travel, if you want to keep doing your workouts when you travel. And ask me questions if you have questions. But I hope this helped, and I hope I see you guys soon.